This is the face of a woman who is in distress and who is in fear for her life. A woman who's just beginning to realize that things may not be going the way that she'd hoped. A woman whose one and only goal in life is to not just feel important, but to actually be important. Anyone attempting to argue that Chad Daybell is somehow innocent is just going to sound like a scumbag. And when it comes to John Pryor, there seems to be a serious resentment towards his attitude. His overall demeanor seemed very condescending. And also during a lot of his cross-examinations, he came off as patronizing while also feigning ignorance, which just felt annoying. But just in the short preliminary hearing so far, I feel like he did a really good job of unmasking and discrediting Melanie Gibb, who has really worked hard at injecting herself into the media and creating a narrative that it seems like a lot of people are buying. Melanie Gibb, in my opinion, seems to want to put on a show that is contradicting. On one hand, she wants to seem holier than thou and woke, and she wants people to flock to her for guidance. For she is the only one who can teach those lessons because she has experienced what it felt like to truly be deceived by the devil. But if she was so recently deceived at such a high cost, should anybody really be taking advice from her? Shouldn't she be the one to take the crash course in common sense? Well, no, because as Melanie has put it in many of her interviews, she didn't actually really believe it. She just kind of was listening and just digesting. From what I've seen of Lori, I think that she is obviously very evil, but I also think that she is mentally unstable. And in most environments, she would be hospitalized. But because of the religious nature of her environment, she's kind of been able to fit in perfectly with this community of narrow-minded people who have this ego-driven God complex. While I think Lori is dangerous and I think that she's in a way manipulative, I also don't think that she's as dangerous as Melanie. Because whereas Lori is very childlike in the way that she tries to get away with her wrongdoings. Like when the cameras were coming and trying to interview her, she just ignored them. Whereas Melanie, I feel, is extremely deceptive, and she tried to portray herself as almost like a martyr. She was a victim, and now she is coming out because she has a message, and the Lord is telling her to reach out and to lead all those who have been led astray. Because now that, quote unquote, this happened to her, she has the experience and knowledge. I think during the preliminary hearing, there seemed to be a moment that really set the stage for what is to come. And I think Melanie's demeanor in some of the cross-examination really showed that she is starting to feel the heat, because now she's realizing that Chad Daybell's attorney knows what really happened. Though with his words, he's saying he doesn't. With his tone and with the line of questioning, Melanie can see that he does know the truth, and that's why he's asking those questions. And before this moment, Melanie has been very direct. She hasn't been fumbling for her words. She hasn't been fiddling around. She hasn't been looking down at anything or messing with her hair. But then when he starts this line of questioning, she begins to really crack. And in my opinion, I feel like it's damning when it comes to Melanie's involvement in this whole callous and twisted cult, zombie serial killer club. So here's the moment, and then afterwards I'll just kind of explain what I think it might mean.
On the Sunday, the 22nd, did David and Chad go to deal with some real estate matters together?
I did as well, and so Alex was there too.
Oh, that was news to me. I wasn't aware you went as well. Where did you guys go?
We went to a lot that was close to Mr. Daybell's home.
And what time was that? Do you recall?
It was sometime in the afternoon. I don't recall exactly.
Okay, sometime meaning between 12 and 5 or 6?
I would say either late morning or early afternoon.
Okay. And the purpose of that was for what, ma'am?
Chad wanted to show this piece of land to David, and he encouraged him to consider building on that land.
Okay. It's your boyfriend. Is your boyfriend in the real estate business, ma'am?
General contractor.
General contractor, okay. Was Lori Vallow present for that?
No.
Was Alex present for that?
Yes.
Okay. And what time did that end?
I don't recall.
Was it a long visit?
I would say an hour-ish.
Okay. Now on the night of the 22nd, Alex Cox was babysitting JJ. Is that what I recall from your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to go through a brief timeline, if I may.
Okay.
So you got back from a real estate event sometime late afternoon, something like that. Is that correct?
Something like that.
Then you and your boyfriend drove over to Lori's apartment?
After that meeting, yes.
Yeah. Did Alex go with you in the same car?
No, he had his own vehicle.
Okay. Did Alex go over to Lori's apartment as well that day afterwards?
I don't recall when he did. He was in and out often.
He was, I'm sorry, what?
He was in and out. He would come in and out of the house, so I don't recall exactly when he arrived or exactly when he did. I don't remember.
He had an ability to just visit Lori. They were very close in that he would just come in when he felt like it. Is that fair to say?
I would say that's fair.
Okay. All right. And so at some point on the 22nd, he was coming in and out, correct?
Yes.
You talked a little bit about Alex carrying JJ back into Lori's apartment.
Correct.
Do you recall when that was approximately?
As I shared yesterday, it was sometime between the hours of 9 p.m. to midnight-ish.
Did Alex stay in the apartment that night?
And not to my knowledge.
Well, how big of an apartment is this?
There are 3 bedrooms upstairs and none downstairs.
So with you in one bedroom and your boyfriend in the other bedroom and Lori in a bedroom, where was JJ?
He had like a little bed in the corner of her room.
Okay.
And so that's where she would have him sleep.
Oh, okay. Was that a permanent structure in there, ma'am?
It was a bed in a corner.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was JJ there at night between 9 and 12?
To my knowledge, he was.
And Alex put him to bed, is that correct?
I just remember him coming in the house holding him, and then I turned back to the recording that I was doing that evening.
Okay. And what was the nature of the recording, ma'am?
We were recording a podcast with Lori present, and we were interviewing David, and he was sharing a lot of his personal spiritual experiences and conversion to our church.
Okay, and that's the LDS religion?
Correct.
So Lori was actively involved as well in the LDS religion at that time during that meeting as well, correct?
Correct.
And she shared the same beliefs that you share in terms of the religion, is that correct?
Correct.
And Chad shared the same religious beliefs as part of the LDS church as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So all of you, David, yourself, Lori, and Chad all share the same and are consistent with your LDS beliefs. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You got up in the morning on the 23rd?
Sometime.
Do you recall about what time, ma'am?
I don't.
Okay. But you do recall that JJ wasn't there?
Correct.
Well, if you didn't know he slept there when you were doing your podcast, how did you know he was there? Wasn't there?
As I said, I don't recall seeing him. I never recall seeing him.
Oh, so he may have been there.
I didn't see him.
Okay, but he may have been there or he may not have been there. Would that be a fair statement?
It could be fair.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I really wish the cameraman would have continued to focus on Melanie while she was obviously acting very unsettled, but instead he suddenly just began focusing the camera on the defense rather than the person testifying, who's suddenly acting very guilty. But anyways, I still feel like it's enough to really see that there is something there. And I think that it's also really interesting the tactic that the defense attorney used, which was to instill some fear in her and, you know, kind of get her all jumbled up. And then he goes silent for a drawn out period of time. You could hear a pin drop. And I bet in that moment, her brain was just going a million miles a second. And with that, she's completely lost focus on that whole script that she has been probably practicing for the last 24 hours with her boyfriend. And she really begins to crack and she loses her story and forgets it. And so he goes back to the next morning when they're leaving and he asks Melanie again, how does she know that JJ wasn't there? He could have been in the room sleeping, right? And she finally agrees, yeah, I guess he could have been in the room sleeping, because she's so fumbled. She can't retract her statement because she doesn't want to look like a liar. So she just goes with that. But the story has always been that when they were leaving, the boyfriend said, hey, I want to say bye to JJ. And then Lori came through and was like, had this whole big story about JJ climbing up the cabinets and knocking over the picture of Jesus. And so he went with Alex. And that's how they know. But she lost it because she's lying. I mean, that's it. And so I wonder if they even saw JJ that night where Alex was holding JJ, or if something really happened when they all went to that empty lot near Chad Daybell's house, you know. Then her boyfriend testifies and he does the same thing, except for this time he denies ever seeing JJ that night while they were doing the podcast. He never saw him again. And then it's just a big shit show. And for me, I feel like, yeah, I hate Chad and I don't think Chad's going to get away with it, but I really like that the lawyer is implicating Melanie in her wrongdoing, because I think that she has a lot more involvement. And I really, really hope that that comes to light and that she is also held accountable for her part in these children losing their lives viciously, and the spouses losing their lives, and all the family members who are affected, and even all the people in our country who have been affected. I feel like all these people need to be held accountable. And so far, it has just really bothered me to see Melanie on TV and you know, getting all this limelight that she so obviously is just basking in. And it just really bothers me because it's so obvious that even in these interviews that she's doing, she doesn't care about the kids. She's not doing them for anything other than to get notoriety, because that's all she's ever wanted. I mean, she had the podcast, and then she really wanted to like start speaking at all these meetings, and she published her own book. And, you know, she really wants attention. And so that's what she was getting for a while. And I really hope that she eventually is held accountable for her part in this and is, you know, taken off her pedestal. Another thing that I was kind of questioning, and I think a lot of people maybe have heard of this theory, is that Melanie actually was having an affair with Chad Daybell before Lori, because during a Nancy Grace interview with another woman who worked with Chad Daybell and who actually accuses him of sexually harassing her, well, his associate said that he told her that he was also once married in another life to another unknown woman who was in Arizona before he even met Lori, and that this woman's husband texted Chad and said, if you don't stop talking to my wife, I'm going to expose you. And so it ended. But then Melanie lives in Arizona, and she also, at the time that this was all happening, did have a husband, and they separated shortly thereafter. And another thing that I feel like points to this theory is Melanie and her words in her interviews. On several occasions, she has said,
the whole goal for them was to be together, and they're not. All the things that they thought were going to happen, their predicted revelations, can you not see that nothing happened the way you thought they would happen? At some point, you have to say to yourself, nothing happened. We're not together. We're both in jail. And now 4 people that were in our family are dead. There comes a point where you got to wake up and realize there's some either mental illness there, some evil influences there. At some point, you're going to have to come to that realization that you can't live in this pretended bubble that you believe in anymore. It's got to pop eventually, because you're not going to come out of jail. You're going to be there for the rest of your life.
Sounds a lot to me like a woman scorned who has since been vindicated. Also, that wasn't the first time she's actually said that same exact spiel. She said it before. So.
How could you do me like that? When all I wanted to do was relax, sit back, have a chat, puff it down, picking up.